Oh, God.
So this is the last one, isn't it?
Before the Mayor's report, yeah. So item number 16. Mayor's report for later. All right. Thank you.
Okay, one.
Yes.
Sorry.
Can I,
Phil?
if I can, through the chair, I would voice a preference for, I'll confirm the issue with the bus lanes and the fact that there is always traffic parked. And so we have to get back into the flow of traffic and go around. And also there is roadwork signs that sit out in the T2 bus lane, so that causes delays.
I think so.
Okay, moving on.
Take that on.
Yes.
Sorry.
Which paper are we talking
Number
about?
16.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Is it-
Sorry, Phil. Can I just declare an interest in this? I'm just going to stand back like I've done previously when we've considered this.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
Far away, Lynette.
Kia ora koutou, everybody. I know it's late in the day, so we'll make this intro as quick as I can. But this report today is the report regarding response to the notice of motion regarding the process for changing the design of a section of the cycleway. We're dealing with the Norwest Arc, section 3 of the Norwest Arc cycleway. The whole route runs from the university to Harewood Road. The section that we're talking about is today, and that the process covers is the section between Island Road and Brookside Terrace along Aorangi Road. It's about 610 metres, and it is part of a larger section that's planned to be constructed in the future. The report's got 3 process options in it. Option A is to continue with the approved design, which has had detailed design completed. Option B is to complete the design of a shared path, which was consulted on and the scheme design's been completed. And option C, which is the description that was provided in the notice of motion, is to create a separated cycleway on the berm beside the footpath, but no design has been completed for that to date. I'm wondering if at this point through the chair we take questions on the process, and I'm sure there'll be questions on the finances, so we deal with that after questions on process. Does that sound like a plan?
Any questions? Oh, yes, sorry, Mel, you had your hand up. I'm going away from councillor this, councillor that, so I'm getting so puffed. It's now just Mel.
Okay, so I've got a few questions. So firstly, has there been any consultation in written form that councillors can see since the hearings panel?
Since the hearings panel? No.
So, okay, so these decisions are without any actual input from people?
So through councillor, so that option C hasn't been consulted on either.
What has been the cost of the time delay that this has created?
The cost?
There's been a time delay
Yep.
in this section being constructed. What is the cost of that?
No, we haven't incurred any costs to date on this section because it was paused at that stage.
Okay.
We have carried on with the other sections.
But there will have been staff time spent on this.
There was staff time spent on getting the report together.
Is it true that option B cost $2.5 million extra?
Is it
True.
true?
As it says in the report, because I've heard other numbers.
So the updated, I sent through an updated table. So can I hold that one for the finance section?
Yep.
Okay. Just while we're at it, I want to move option B, and Sam's happy to second option B. Just moving along.
I'll be foreshadowing option A.
And I'll be seconding that.
Good on you. Okay. We shouldn't act like we're pardon me.
Still questions on the process.
Yeah. We're still doing questions on the process. Aaron and Jake, I think, did you have your hand up, mate? No, sorry.
So why is it the consideration not for this to be a greenway like Worcester Street and things like that, with some, dare I say it, some speed humps, and then the showers down the road and things through there? Because even the neighbours down here put out, you would have seen it when you're out there working, the sign, please slow for ducklings and so on and so forth. So
process, Mr. Mayor, could we not go down a track of more options? We've got a report and we've got the options in front of us.
I just wanted to know what was ruled out, because the
Take us
speed in
all
the
night.
area has been lowered even more, so it makes it safer. But I don't know, if we're not into saving money anymore and getting the best outcome for the community, let's just
totally out.
move on.
So that was part of the consideration in the hearing way back when the design was developed up. That was considered at that point, and vehicle numbers and volumes were what ruled that out.
Okay. So any more questions on the process? Sarah?
I'm just interested, the original notice of motion had quite a short time frame for coming back and reporting, and I'm just wondering, and we'll get to the costs of the delay later, but why the process has taken so long to get to here.
I can help you there.
Yep.
What was written in it I was not happy with, because there was massive cost in there, which I know damn well is not the cost which has come to bear that when we hear about it, and that's why I took it off.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else on process? Alrighty. Sorry, Jake, yeah?
What was the original cost estimate?
Shall we come to cost?
Shall I talk to the cost?
Mosey
and the
on to cost.
Table. Can I ask Katie to pop the cost table up on the? It's in my, yeah, here we go. So I sent through an updated. Oh, I know you can't read that. I sent through an updated sheet last night. Or Katie did last night, to try and articulate a bit more information about the costs. What we have done is, so the option A that we've got has been designed up, and we are working towards, well, in this section we are not working towards anything, it's paused, but it has been designed up. So that's the on-road separated cycleway, two-way cycleway. Option B has had a scheme design done, so we have looked at a high level at what additional work would we need to do, and we have tried to provide an estimate, but it is a very high level estimate of what additional work would need to be done or may need to be done with the design. And it's again we've done the same with option C. So these are very high level estimates to understand the quantum of what may be required. And I really want to stress that it may be required, it may not. We haven't done the detailed work to know whether it will be. So the estimate is that in order to do the additional work for option B, we may need between $1 million and $2 million over and above what it would cost to do A.
Okay, question from me. With where it says in A, which is this good that we've got this little graph here.
Yes.
Where it says in A, it says indented parking needed and curb separator needed. How much do they cost because they're not required in the other one, which will take the value down quite substantially?
Yes, my apologies, I should have put in what they would come out of. They are, for that section, that 600 metre section, the very high level estimate is 20 to 30,000 each.
Okay. Because I've done a few roads. If we've got 610 metres and got twin curbs there, because that's what we do, isn't it, in Island Road?
That one's a narrow one, yes.
Yep. So it's 610 times 2 is 1,220 metres, times $70 is 85 grand. And then we've got 610 metres of path in the road. And I know I've been told many times, not by you, by other people, that we don't dig the road out, but at Island Road, we do dig the road out because I've talked to Fulton Hogan and they told me that the consultant told them to dig the road out. So we excavate the road, we then fill it back in and we put asphalt in. Once the 2 curbs are in, that's 54 grand's worth in itself, which doesn't need to be done. Yeah. Then, what else we got? Then we've got the new path to go in, which is 1,800 square metres, with the base course, the top course and asphalt, and that comes to 450 grand. So there's a lot of, if we put it on the, and I know it's going to cost money to put it on the grass, yes. These are the savings we're having by not putting it on the road.
That's all very possible, yes.
Very
possible.
Possible, yeah, thank you. Yep, any other questions? Sarah, then Jake.
Kia ora, thanks so much for that. So you recently around the long-term plan, LGNZ put out some data around the cost pressures that councils have been facing. And by their estimate, looking across the country, construction for projects in the road and corridor, sort of the roading projects, since the last LTP over 3 years has gone up 27%. Does that seem about right to you?
That's consistent with the data I've heard, yes.
Yep. And so in the 8 months it's taken us between the notice of motion on the 6th of September until now, is it likely that the costs for just doing what we, even option A, will have gone up in that time, and that any further delay is likely to increase costs for even option A?
It's possible.
Yeah.
But we have continued to work with our contractors, and we've continued to work on the rest of the route.
Yeah. And what's the parking demand like in the area? So we had some photos, I think, in November that were sort of emailed round, which showed quite busy on a Sunday for sort of an hour and a half. Yeah. But
part of the challenge with the parking demand in this, and this is why there was so much work done with the at the time and the engagement with the non-resident stakeholders, we've called them. They're the churches and the schools and the businesses, but particularly in this section it is the 3 churches, is that those churches are not always just used on a Sunday. The parking demand is about 50% is what we have, the project managers told me from the report that was put through.
Okay.
But it's not just Sundays. Those churches service community groups all through the week. We acknowledge that.
So they don't have it, yeah. But there's plenty of parking on the side streets and things nearby too?
There is parking around the area, yeah.
And at the time of the hearings panel, they did ask for additional work to be done on parking.
Yes.
What happened because of that?
The design, my recollection is the design changed at that time.
Yeah, that's what I
thought. And that came back to council as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Jake?
Just the same question as before. When this report was last sprung, what was the figure for option B at that stage?
When this report?
When this was not heard, when it was taken off the agenda. I can't remember what month that was. When this was last due to come to council, but did not.
Oh, it hasn't changed. Sorry.
Right.
I think I've misunderstood your question. I think asking you.
Oh no, option B. So the cost estimates have remained unchanged.
There was $2.5 million on the first report. Mm-hmm. We've been through and done a reassessment overnight,
so
and that was mine overnight. No.
Yeah, okay.
No, that wasn't a change before that. No,
okay,
sorry.
Cool. Thanks.
Andre.
Thank you. Are you able to please confirm the difference in number of car parks between option A and B?
Option A retained in this section.
That's 300.
Hang on. That's one I prepared earlier, sorry.
That's what I
in this section, there's a total number of 127 car parks.
Being put back in, is it?
127 in this 600 metre section. Option A has 51 retained, which is, I think, one of the points in your report. Option B, there will be minor loss because we'll have to do build outs. There'll be some yellow lines that'll go in, but we haven't done that level of detail for either of these. We haven't done the design for option C, so I anticipate it would be similar to option B, but I don't know.
Well, so the difference as I'm reading it is around 60 between option A and B. Difference in number of parks you end up with.
Yeah,
I'm on the right track there?
60 more
Yeah.
than B.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
It's fair to say, I think, I'll just butt in, option C is a fizzer in just about anyone's mind. Carry on, Jake.
So, you're right.
Sarah?
So is my recollection right that this is predominantly shovel-ready funded?
This is shovel-ready funded, yes.
And any extra cost would end up being ratepayer funded? Yeah, thanks.
Samuel?
Thanks, Lynette, for the work on this. Can you just explain to me, just so I've got it clear in my mind, you know the $17 million overrun?
Yep.
In the other part of the cycleway?
Yeah, this part.
In the whole.
This part.
Yeah,
in the whole, as
in the
opposed
whole
to
part.
yeah.
Because I guess it's planned in the LTP, but just so we're clear that, could you just explain to me how that funding has been baked into the draft LTP? Because that will be ratepayer money, won't it? The increase across the whole network.
Some of it. Some of it is to do with so when we're going in to do the construction of this cycleway, we're also taking the opportunity to do street renewals, stormwater renewals, and wastewater renewals in particular, and some water supply work. So some of that, say the street renewal stuff, could get shovel-ready funding, but the bulk of it is, of the 17, is ratepayers. Of the additional is ratepayers money. Yeah.
Okay, so I was actually a bit confused here. So the 17 million over is from the University to Harewood Road, not
Yes.
from Jelly Park to Harewood Road.
No, University to Harewood Road.
Of the whole thing.
Yep.
Okay, and the initial shovel-ready money from the University to Harewood Road was 15 million, roughly?
17.8, I'm hearing behind me. Yeah, roughly 15 million.
How much, and you might not be able to tell me, how much have we used on the bit from the University to Jelly Park? So how much is left for the next bit?
I should have had that. We've used about 9 million so far, but
There's
not,
about 6 left, roughly, for
well, not all of it is shovel-ready on the first bit. So we've used slightly less than that on our shovel-ready money, so yeah, about 6.
So in yeah, okay. So I'm just looking at how much, in my head, the bit from Jelly Park to Harewood Road is going to be way more than 6 million, even if you weren't doing any of the extra roading and stuff.
Yeah, and we are bringing that back through the FMP.
And that will
reports.
be ratepayer funded. Melanie, please.
Sorry, I might have missed this because I've been a bit distracted, but can you just talk through the safety or option, like the comparison of safety between option A and B? For cyclists, pedestrians, drivers entering and exiting the driveway.
So that was the issue that was raised at the hearings panel, and the recommendation. So currently the footpath is hard against the driveways. So the recommendation or the proposal that was consulted on was to shift the path out, which is why it was a shared path. It is and the report raises in a couple of places, particularly in the hearings panel report attachment, so it's particularly 410 and 411, the main issue is the potential for conflict between pedestrians and cyclists, and that was raised as the main issue in the hearings panel between the two options.
Sarah?
Thanks. We heard from a deputation earlier in the day about current issues on that sort of shared section near to there. And we've had complaints in the past from especially actually older residents who really struggle with bicycles, especially e-bikes and things, whizzing really close by them. Is that likely to be exacerbated here? And how sort of roughly, do we get sort of regular complaints in for that kind of stuff, or is it more anecdotal? I know on the coastal pathway we've been getting a few complaints.
Yeah.
And that's 4 metres wide, so.
It's a bit of a mix, councillor.
Yeah.
We sometimes get complaints, we sometimes get anecdotal, sometimes we get information via the media. Whether it's going to be exacerbated or not, that's a bit of a crystal ball. I don't think I can provide a response on today, sorry.
But we do have, there's been research and stuff in the past which shows, where people feel safe and where they don't. Yeah.
Victoria.
Thank you, Mayor Phil. Thank you, Lynette. You were talking about the conflict between the pedestrian and the cyclist from a safety perspective. Can you confirm that there are actually footpaths on both sides of that road? So if pedestrians chose to, they could walk on the other side of the road on the other footpath quite safely without interfering with cyclists on a shared path?
Give me 1 second, councillor. There's footpaths on both sides. Yeah. Yes, there is. Yes. Sorry, I was having a moment.
Okay, Aaron, please.
Just because the shared path one's been raised a couple of times, what's the width of this versus the width of the Northern Line shared path?
The standard width for a shared path is 3.5 metres.
And what's
That's
Northern Line?
Northern
like
Line
down through Fendleton and stuff like that.
Some of Northern Line varies because of the boundaries.
So its narrowest would be two
probably.
Yeah, maybe 2.2 or something, just over 2.
Yeah.
Right, and is this route likely to get anywhere near the numbers of the Northern Line?
It is.
Because I went down there this morning, there's 0, but I mean, that's a good growth point because one's a double.
This route is showing in the modelling that it will be one of our growth routes.
Well, from 0 it will be,
Yeah, but one of our higher use routes because of the number of schools, big schools, and the university.
I've got one more. Okay, thanks. Now, I've got one more because we should get onto it because it gets dark at 9 o'clock. Up there on the two things actually. One of the things that was in the report is, we can't possibly do this because of the extra asphalt on the berm, which would not soak into the ground. I don't think it is true, but it's not a problem. We could put that soakable, permeable concrete on there if we really wanted to, if we wanted to do something like that. But the one thing that I do struggle with is where it says in-berm service relocations needed somewhere between $500,000 to $1 million. Now, that'll be going along with a sucker truck knowing where things are and going down and nutting out the depth and stuff like that. All we're doing is taking off 150 millimetres of topsoil and grass and putting 150 millimetres of shingle and asphalt on. We shouldn't be anywhere near any services, so I can't see why that number's in there.
The in-berm service relocations, we are actually aware that some of them are quite shallow. Particularly some of the comms, the fibre cables are actually only 200 deep. Mm-hmm. So that it's the lowering of them that is required. From our point of view, that this is a bit of a risk assessment. Where are the risks likely to be? We are aware that there are fibre cables in that berm, and they need to have coverage before we get to the thing, and they're quite shallow right now. Mm-hmm. Oh, and the water main is in the trees.
Is the water main in the berm?
Under the trees.
Okay, but as I reiterate, we don't have to dig very deep.
No.
For putting you could actually get away with 100 mils of concrete if you wanted to. Okay, so what I'm going to do is put my option B first. Is that how I do it?
That's the motion.
That's the first one. I'm going to put option B. All those in favour of option B? Hey?
Do you want to debate?
Oh, okay. Oh, yes. I've got some debate. It's the excitement of the day. Debate. Thank you, Lynette.
Debate them both.
Debate everything. Go for your life. Okay, who wants to be first? No, I'll go at the end. No, I'll just go twice at the end. Mel?
We heard earlier today, less hooey, more doughy. This could almost be done now, but anyhow. Look, I think delaying this was a bad idea. We're going to, if option B does go through, we'll create a less safe version of the cycleway, and we'll spend more while we're at it. I can't see any advantage to this. I'm trying to bike most days now, and I would choose to bike on the road rather than on a shared path, to be quite honest, especially if they are adjacent to driveways, because where there are driveways, there are cars that come out, and when you're driving out of your own driveway, it's quite hard to see if a person walking is coming. If they're cycling, you have got almost no time to react. Option B puts cyclists at risk of being hit by cars exiting driveways. It puts pedestrians at risk of colliding with cyclists. And earlier today, there were questions of one of the deputies, and it was mentioned that the people that live in the homes along the street are vulnerable people. Option B puts the onus on those vulnerable people, if they're driving out of those affected properties, to be hypervigilant when exiting their driveway, when the shared path may not be very visible until their car is actually situated on the path itself. Are they prepared to hit a cyclist? I was also unaware that vulnerable people would want to walk out of their front gate and not even have their own space to walk in a safe place without negotiating cyclists biking in both directions. I don't think that's something that a vulnerable person would actually choose. Unfortunately, I think those poor residents have been fed a lie. And interestingly, none of those people came here to advocate for the shared path today. We heard from a whole lot of people that want option A, which is what I'll support, which has the, it went through a very thorough process. I was on that hearings panel, and it seems very strange that we're in this position. So, I don't know why they have not come today. They're either not keen to, or they're unable to speak for themselves, and I think making a decision without actually hearing from those people, if that is the reason for this, is not democratic.
Sorry, Tyrone, before you, Sarah.
I didn't become a Christchurch City Councillor to go round and round in circles on things that are just no-brainers for me, but again, here we go once again on cycleways, my God. In the very meeting, we're coming up with a clever way to avoid paying $1.8 million to one group. We're going to spend $2 million on something that should have been a no-brainer.
It's not $2 million.
For no good reason. Like, we spent a bunch of time last year beating each other up over Park Terrace, which has been, to call it a storm in a teacup, would be an insult to teacups. Now we've been through another process, wasting staff time, our time, everybody's time, to come back with a harder to implement option that costs more. It costs more, and moreover, it costs more. Proceed with option A. Implement using the knowledge that we've gained from all the work we've done on cycleways, on Park Terrace, and please, I beg my fellow councillors to stop constantly having these meaningless and time-wasting arguments when we have got so many bigger things to worry about.
Sarah.
Talking of residents, over 60% approved of option A during the consultation process. And this is, stunning once again. So 8 months on, and increased costs for the tender are more than likely, given the 27% in construction inflation costs over the last 3 years. And if there's one thing that drivers hate, it's cyclists cycling on the road next to a cycleway. Drivers want cyclists to be using cycleways, but if we build a cycleway that's full of pedestrians near a really busy and popular church and pool, then cyclists will be on the road, and that will further outrage those who are already outraged. If there's another thing that drivers hate, it's council spending additional money that they don't have to do on cycleways, and yet that's what we're proposing to do today. We have a design that's already been consulted on, recommended and approved by council, that's already fully designed, shovel-ready funded and ready to go. And yet here we are today proposing to spend extra money to build something unnecessarily. The ratepayers' pockets are not bottomless, and our water infrastructure is creaking and it is leaking. We have a very, very tight LTP with a gazillion demands for both operational expenditure and for capital. And if any additional capital is wanting to be spent by councillors today, it should be spent on things that actually aren't cycleways, that is unnecessary extra spend. We should be spending on our water infrastructure. We could be spending on the arts centre, for example. We could be spending on a range of different things. This is unnecessary. Please vote for option A and not delay and spend additional unwarranted money on an unsafe piece of infrastructure.
Tyler, please.
Kia ora koutou. I'm not actually going to comment negatively on the process, and one of the things I actually admire most about our mayor is the way that he gets his hands on things and actually wants to be face to face with people. That's something I really admire about the mayor. I'm going to talk about the issue in itself, and that is around safety. We know that, and with the lived experience that many of us as cyclists have, and also the people that we represent, do not like shared paths. Walkers don't like it, cyclists don't like it, and it creates hesitancies. We talk about that all the time. What was made this morning, the things that were talked about this morning in regards to spokes and the other submitters or deputies were giving some really, really good beneficial recommendations, and that is to support option A. It obviously is cheaper, and to be honest with you, the risk is too high to be able to go with option B, because we all know the risks associated to building something around berms and how many cowboys there are in the city that will go down and pull up some services that we don't need pulling up, and therefore staff will come to us saying there's been some cost blowouts because it's not on the contractor. For me, I feel more comfortable putting option A because it's cheaper, it's less risky, and it continues to get the job done, like putting in good infrastructure to our city. So therefore, I'm going to support option A.
Andre.
Thank you. Yeah, I disagree with some of the comments that this has all been a waste of time. Hindsight is one thing, but you've got to give things a go sometimes. And sometimes revoking a decision leads to better outcomes that finds a good compromise and consensus with both sides. It does. So I did support the notice to look at the shared path option, which was stand by. And I do commend the mayor for going out and knocking on doors. That should be encouraged by everyone. Even if a consultation's been done, we can't pretend like consultations always reach everyone. The more engagement, still the better. It doesn't hurt. That's something we should encourage. So I am a believer in considering shared paths where they are safe or where they are practical to do so. Some work very well, some will not, but some do work. And we should try and retain car parks where safe and practical to do so as well. We need to recognise all road users, and if we can build cycleways without pissing the neighbours off, that's actually a really good start to building a successful cycleway. It is, because if it pisses you off so much, you're never going to want to get on a bike for the rest of your life. That's how the human psyche works at times. I cannot, however, support the extra cost in doing so. Potentially if it's $1 or $2 million, we do continually talk about wanting to find cheaper ways to build cycleways, which I think we do need to do, especially with cost blowouts and everything else. But we've got so many different communities crying out for different types of road safety infrastructure, whether it's around schools or otherwise, who've been asking for it for many, many years, and where it should have been done years ago. So I just can't in good faith justify the extra $1 or $2 million on this to retain 60 car parks, which that kind of money could potentially improve safety around half a dozen schools. So I couldn't in good faith go to them and say I voted to spend this or prioritise this as a high value over your 600 students. I can't do it. So I am regrettably or unfortunately will support option A.
Samuel.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think these debates bring out the best in us. Well, certainly some of us, and then others maybe not so much. I think actually, Tyler and Andre, your contributions have been outstanding to this. And the only thing I wanted to say was that if we think about how we got to this point, a democratically elected council considered a notice of motion that asked for more advice. A democratically elected council by majority made that decision. We should consider advice when a democratically elected council decide to go and get it. So, I don't think we should beat up on things like this. I'm not sure it's overly helpful. And the reality is, look, the vote will be what it'll be. The thing I'm most heartened about from this debate, though, is everyone's, I think, agreement in the need to reduce the spending or the over-budgeting on some of these cycleways, and I really look forward to that F&P report before the LTP is struck, where we need to consider another $17 million on this particular cycle route. And so the comments today, while some have not been helpful, I think there's been a lot that have been particularly helpful as we work to reach a solution on that additional cycleway cost.
Okay, Pauline.
Yeah, look, thank you. Look, most of it's been said. did not support the notice of motion, but I agree with Councillor MacDonald that we did make a democratic decision to progress and seek that advice, so I'm not going to knock that. And we have the advice today. But as we've heard from our submitters this morning, and there were a considerable number of them, that option A is the safest, the quickest, the cheapest and the best option. That notice of motion has held the work up for, I think it's about 8 months, I read in the report. And I really am struggling to understand why option B, if that's on the table, would not actually require further consultation, because it is not a safe option, as we've been told. So on the basis that the option B is A, more expensive by whatever the quantum is, it is more expensive, and it's not as safe, I'll be supporting option A. And I do feel, even though I respect the democratic process, I do feel very sorry for staff who the project goes on again, off again, on again, off again. It would be really good if we can get to a certain stage in a project and say, well, look, let's not interfere with it now, even if we don't really agree with it, it's a little bit late in the process, because it's going to cost a lot of money to interrupt it, and it does cost money. And the hearings panel was a considerable investment. There's always engagement, then consultation, then a hearings, and then we probably, I can't remember how long we sat in this room and talked about the first decision to support option A. So there's considerable investment in time and energy, and staff and us as well. So I do urge people to stick with the option A. It is the safest, the quickest, the cheapest and the best. Thank you.
Ooh. Kelly, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Phil. Yeah, it's good to take the drama out of these sorts of things. At the end of the day, cycling is going to get a big win here, and I want to congratulate, like Councillor MacDonald, my colleagues, Councillor Harrison-Hunt and Councillor Moore, for taking sort of a pragmatic, non-confrontational view. I think, you know, a long time ago I used to bike down this way to university. You know, there were a lot less cars, and it was probably horse and carts in those days, but it's certainly going to be a lot safer for cycling. I think I'd really like to see sensible solutions looked at, and, you know, not everybody likes the fact that we have to go through a process to do this, but I think it's really important in terms of democracy. It's always good to remember that the vast majority of people of the city do not come into council and express their opinion on these sorts of things, and so it's great when the mayor or anybody actually goes out and speaks to local residents and gets their viewpoint on things. We've got a lot of these wide berms around the city, which I don't really see an awful lot of the point of them. It disappoints me the fact that we're going to lose a lot of parks with option A, but it is cheaper. Much as I don't like the idea of spending more money, it would have been nice if we had been able to cater for more of the residents. At the end of the day, they're the ones who are directly affected. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Jake?
There's almost no point now. Everyone's said pretty much everything. Other than I had a feeling that this one would arc people up. It really shouldn't be a hard decision, and it's not looking like it's going to be, because the best option is a separated cycleway is also the cheapest option. We could spend a lot more money and get a subpar cycleway. We could spend a hell of a lot more money and get the same standard cycleway, but on a walkway, not a roadway. I don't think the suburban area is in need or is short on parking, and actually we're not in the business of providing public parks for private benefit. Actually, when you work it out, between $33,000 and $44,000 a park is what we're looking at here for the extra 2 to 2.5 million, or 1 as it may be, but I doubt that that's going to be the case. So I'd encourage colleagues to support the original recommendation of the illustrious hearings panel as it was, and get on with it and do the financially prudent and safest thing.
Tyler? Done? This was outstanding. Oh no,
That was my fault, sorry.
Yeah.
I saw a hand go
Oh, it's
up
Mark
over
and Tyler. It's hard to tell them apart.
Yeah.
Mark.
Your brother.
Go, Mark.
Here. Hey, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I take my hat off to the Mayor in this one, going and actually door knocking and talking to the residents directly, hearing their voices directly. We all understand that consultation, for all that it is, doesn't get 100% of people in an area. So well done, Phil, in going and talking to the locals and to the churches and to those that are actually going to be affected by this. Yes, the option B might be a lesser option by being a shared path and be slightly more expensive, but at the end of the day, we need to be doing these cycleways with the communities. And with the community, to me, means actually talking to those that it's going to directly affect, not just those that pass through, but those that actually live on the area. So I will be supporting option B on this one. Yes, it might cost us a bit more, but we've got a bigger conversation we're going to be having around the LTP, so let's look forward to that discussion.
Okay, we're getting there now. Victoria?
Thank you, Mayor Phil. Mark's really touched on the issue that's bothering me about this, and that is the local residents and their voice, and the fact remains that the majority of the local residents preferring option B, and we're not talking about a minority, we're talking 15 out of 16. And some comments have been made that we haven't got the locals here submitting to us today. You may recall that we had a resident called Graham Pollock come and present to us on this last year at the time when he thought that this was going to be dealt with. And he reported that 100% of the affected residents were supporting option B. So surely the locals really need to be listened to and their views respected. I suspect that they're not here because they don't think that we listen to them, and I think that's really disappointing, but not altogether surprising. Now, last year I sat in a workshop with everybody here, and we agreed that local voices should be respected. You may or may not remember what we were talking about, and it was a different matter. But when we were asked very clearly if there was one thing that you would do differently, what is it? It was overwhelmingly everybody said, listen to the local residents and act on their concerns. I really remember that, and it resonated with me. So we've got an opportunity to do that here. The local community have spoken. They may not be here today, but they have spoken via a number of means, and we ought to be respecting their voices. I think this is one of the opportunities that's been touched on by some of the other councillors where we can achieve an outcome that predominantly works for everybody to some degree. And I accept that there's no perfect solution. And I think that the conflict between the cyclists and pedestrians may have been overstated somewhat, because there is footpaths on both sides of the roads, and it is quite a wide path. I do accept that there's a cost component, and it's unfortunate but perhaps inevitable. On that note, I don't have a great deal of confidence in the high-level sums that have been given to us in relation to the costs that were shared with us today. But that aside, I'm just not prepared to ride roughshod over this community. It's a community that I know well. It's close, it's a neighbouring community to me. So we all know that if you want to create sustainable change for good, and this has been touched on by a number of councillors, that you have to take the people with you. Now, we've got an opportunity to do that here, and in doing so, restoring some of the public trust and confidence in council decision making, that we actually listen to the local residents when they come to talk to us. Thank you.
Aaron?
Yeah, very well put, and I'll try and be as diplomatic as you, Councillor Henstock, as I normally am. So, firstly, I know this road well because it's one of my preferred rat run routes in the morning. Because obviously, as you'll know, the main roads don't flow, so you have to rat run down some of these streets. And so I do count the number of cyclists that aren't there, and I do, for the councillors that have spoke about the danger of putting Plan B in, of how close it is to the properties, any road where you have a house and a footpath, and then we've put outside that footpath a cycleway on the edge of the road, is the same distance as this. So we won't be signing any more of those off in the future because they are too dangerous, as we're hearing. Also, the shared path, yes, there is footpaths both sides that you can change and use. My favourite cycleway in the city, and I've always been an advocate of the coastal pathway, but I haven't used it yet myself, is the Northern Line. Is a fantastic cycleway through our city. It's a really direct route, very often full of pedestrians and cyclists, and works really, really well, and gets narrower than this, also with nowhere to go in those narrow points because you've got a railway line fence and 6-foot fences on the other side. The money one's interesting because if that was really our goal, we would do the same as Worcester Street here. You put in the humps, I'd be happy to drop the speed to 20k an hour here to achieve that, to save the money that people want to save. And the residents down here want the traffic to go slower anyway. They actually hand make signs and put them out. But I know no one here's seen them because they haven't actually been down to have a look. Unlike the mayor who door knocked all the affected houses, and Graham who come in, who spoke to all the affected houses and got 100% commitment that they didn't want that option A design, which brings me to my last point. If you want people to not get into cycling and cycleways, vote option A. Do it to the people one more time. Go on, get them. Because if you want to take them on the journey, do what the local people want. Let's go for option B. We've got Phil offering to help get the price down as much as he can. But let's go for that option because option A is doing it to the people, not with the people, and it will put people off cycling. So if I can sway one vote at this table, it's those who want more people cycling. You will join to vote option B.
Tis me. Tis me. Tis me. Right. Contrary to what some people said this morning, not us, other people, I am not trying to remove this cycleway. People say I hate cycleways. I don't hate cycleways. I hate the amount of money we're spending on them. I went along all the affected houses at the request of 2 churches to please do something. 100% of the people said they were either unaware or did not consult and felt, or did consult and felt they were not heard. These are the vulnerable people that I'm hearing so much about. We are very good at listening to people who are not affected and forcing a project on that affects a lot of people's quality of life. This is a common sense solution to a problem. It is not a personal attack on the hearings panel who made the decision on what was put in front of them. I can't even read my own writing. I'm not convinced that at all about the cost and the time delays. If the contractor, who I'm understanding is sitting there waiting to go, he could design and build down the side of that road. You just say to him, this first 610 metres is going on, you're just building a footpath on a berm. We do it every day of the week as contractors. We're not in the job, I don't have any more. It is not going to cost more to not do the indented parking, to take away the curb separators, and not build the cycleway on the road, which involves removing coal tar and other stuff like that. That's a saving of $1.1 million, which is very close to the 1 million. The other thing that I'm really struggling with is why we need to go along. And if we're only excavating down such a small amount, I know there'll be some work around the trees if the trees are removed, excavating down such a small amount, why we need to spend so much on in-berm finding the cables. All this work will stop the possibility over the 610 metres, the possibility of coal tar removal. We've heard all of our favourite friend coal tar and how much it costs us a bloody fortune. It's awful. And the traffic management for the extra parking bays on the other side of the road. This job can't progress anyway because there is not enough budget left from the first part of this cycleway from the university to Jelly Park. There's not enough to the left to do this MCR as designed. And also the estimated cost blowout of 17 million, to be fair, not over all of it over the existing budget. Another 2 things is I've been down there, there's a lot more cars there than just an hour and a half on a Sunday. They do lots of community stuff in those churches, a hell of a lot. And the other thing is, in the report, it said option A, there was 62% ahead of it, for it. But then you go over the page, and when they reviewed the submissions, those who live on this route and those from relevant organisations, option B, 15, and option A was 1. So 99% of the people who live right there don't want it. So I started all this off. So I'm, of course, voting for option B. So with that, I'll put my one, do I, first? Yeah. All those in favour of option B? Aye. All those against? No.
Or we could have hand. Do you want a division or hand?
division.
Division.
Are we asking for division?
Yeah.
So a division, this is option B for the shared path. Councillor Templeton. No. Councillor McClellan.
No.
Councillor McDonald.
Yes.
Councillor Johansson. Are you sitting back? Councillor Fields.
No.
Councillor Moore.
No.
Councillor Donovan. No. Councillor Coker.
No.
Councillor Peters.
Yes.
The mayor.
Yep.
Councillor Barber.
Yep.
Councillor Kewen.
He doesn't blow up doors.
Councillor Goff. Councillor Goff.
James?
Yes.
Councillor Henstock.
Yes.
Councillor Harrison Hunt.
No.
Deputy Mayor Cotter. No. 8 against.
Hey, that's not bad. Not bad. Okay, so that's lost. So does that automatically mean?
So now we have a foreshadowed motion for option A.
All right. So put option A. All those in favour of option A? Aye. Against?
No.
No. It won't have changed.
For anybody that changed
You
in the
did.
first vote.
No one changed the view, did they? Just switched them around.
Where's bloody Scandrett when you want him?
So I'll mark the
He would not have
votes for
voted
foreshadowed
for
motion in reverse.
So A is 1. Yeah.
I need to go.
Well, Mark.
Righto.
Mayor's report.
So Mayor's report.